detail. So, um, kind of weird wording here. Mm. So the problem with this statement is she phrased it as address inefficiencies in our existing process. The problem was there really wasn't an existing process, especially not for renewal. So nobody was catching these, these opportunities for growth, these opportunities for a better customer experience because there wasn't a
Right.
process. Um, so I mean, I'm not completely in love with the way she phrased that. Um, but I guess the inefficiency would be that there was no renewal process. There was nobody going into these systems to figure out, okay, well, what does the customer have? What does the customer need? What plans are they on? Do we need to get a solutions engineer engaged to map out the new process, the new services from whatever legacy products they currently have?
Right. By the way, I'm like curious about this new process that you created. Like this whole account renewal process that you created, did it involve like mapping the whole process out and like modeling it and like analyzing the process? Like is it like streamlined, is it efficient, and like build ensure that this was a well built process?
Correct. So, um, before what would happen is, so the majority, like over 95% of our contracts are evergreen. So if the customer was going to renew, the account would just renew for what it is today. So a lot of these legacy customers were stuck with the same old plans over, year after, um, year after year, or not year after year, but our standard terms are 36 months, which again, like also poses a problem because these accounts would renew every 3 years, so nobody was really looking at them.
Right. Okay. And like okay, you built a very like critical process. Like account renewal process is like a very widespread process that like most companies have, correct?
Hmm.
Like formalized account renewal process, correct?
What was the last part?
uh I said that like I wanted to ask that like this is a very like widespread like account renewal. It's a pretty widespread process that most companies have, right?
Right.
And like this company didn't, and you create this process for
Cor-
it, right?
Correct.
Right. Okay. And by creating this process, did you like new like the accounts being renewed after like they're being automatically renewed after every 3 years, right? So like this process of renewal, this isn't like is this like helping your clients like identify new services or new plans? Like is this in a way helping them improve helping you people improve customer satisfaction and boost revenue?
Sorry, what was the question? I mean, yeah, that's exactly that's what we did.
Right. Like I'm having a bit of trouble, like if you can guide me on this. Like I'm having a bit of trouble imagining like suppose like in 3 years, after 3 years, after every 3 years, like the account is automatically renewed without the customer knowing it, or like without the customer like even noticing it. So like how did your like by introducing this account renewal process, like how did this help improve customer satisfaction or boost revenue?
Well, especially so the customer satisfaction part of it, a lot of the times what we were finding is nobody was looking at really looking into what these accounts look like. So for example, a lot of the customers had um especially in the enterprise segment that have over 1,000 lines of service, they would have, you know, 20-30% of their fleet was not reporting. They were unlinked lines of service, which means they just weren't being used. And the customer just kept activating new lines of service every time they had a new vehicle added to their fleet instead of using the existing ones. So that was definitely a step that we added in the process that really helped with customer experience, because we were able to say, okay, well, yes, Mr. Customer, you have 1,000 units, but out of these 1,000, there's like 30, 40 that you're not using. What should we do with them? Especially during the renewal process. Like, this is where you would be able to, or where the customer would be able to renew the account and, cancel these units if they're not using them, or if they need us to send out replacement hardware. This would be the time to do it at no cost. Where any renewal that might have gone through in the past, like, went through with the account as it is. If the customer needed replacement hardware, we no longer send that if it's not being sent out with a renewal.
Right. And the boosting revenue bit, like, this is about improving customer experience, right? So what about the boosting revenue bit?
We would be able, now that we were doing these account maintenance, we would be able to go in there and say, hey, like, the customer has this service, they're paying, we'll say $5 per unit, which, again, in the enterprise segment, when they have over 1,000 units, it makes a huge difference. The customer's not using this. Why don't you, as a sales rep, bring this up and say, hey, like, let's go ahead and get rid of this. We have this other service that you totally benefit from. And they would have the opportunity to present our newer and improved services or additional services to what the customer was already paying.
Right. Okay. All right. So we are like towards the end of this whole job experience, but there are like a couple of last points that I wanted to clarify. This thing that you mentioned, you remember and the software that you mentioned, Vanika software. Vanika, I believe. Hello.
I'm sorry, what?
You remember you mentioned at a point like Vanika software.
Oh, yes.
Vanika software.
Uh-huh.
Could you like spell it out for me?
It's Wanaka.
Okay, Wanaka. Wanaka, Vanika compute. Okay, all right. Okay. Other than this, right? And like, what type of software would you categorize it as?
I don't know.
Okay, like,
can I get
account
back to
management?
you? I can probably ask her. She's a little more familiar with that.
Okay, that's not a problem. You don't need to trouble yourself over this.
Okay.
Okay. And other than this, okay, so now there are a couple of like keywords that I like wanted to bring up to you and see if like anything comes up, like anything that we've not discussed. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so any other data analysis projects you were involved in? You already told me a lot about like some of the reports that you created, but any other data analysis projects that you were involved with?
Any what? I'm sorry?
Data analysis projects.
I'm sorry. I'm not following.
Any projects related to like analyzing data and like from that data, from the findings of that data, using the findings of that data to drive critical strategic decisions. So any such projects?
Nothing we haven't discussed already.
All right. Okay. Customer service. Okay. So like, were you ever like, in any of your cases, did you face the customer? Was this a customer facing? I don't think you were like very customer facing, but like,
No.
did you ever interact with the customer, engage with the customer?
No. No. Any communication went out through the sales team or the customer success team.
Right. Okay. did you find a way to improve like the efficiency, or like how did you ensure that this like your orders, processing income codes, things like that, and processing and reviewing agreements, how did you ensure that was done efficiently and accurately?
Well, I mean, it was the thing is, like, for the majority of these orders, I wasn't submitting them. I would be the one to make sure that the sales team was doing them correctly and efficiently. A lot of the times we would rely on other departments. So, for example, the solutions engineer, they would provide us with a document. It was also an Excel spreadsheet that
Right.
would let us know what products were needed in the opportunity, and we would just cross-reference that.
Right. Okay. And you already talked about another opportunity, like another thing that you did to improve like efficiency, like you trained your salespeople to be self-sufficient, correct? So that was another thing.
Correct.
Okay. And okay, so like were you involved, like aside from the things that we talked about, were you involved in any other process improvement initiatives like system enhancement, user training, software procurement, like by identifying software or technologies that you needed, vendor engagements, or by recommending business strategy improvements? So are you involved with any of that?
No.
Okay, all right. um did you develop any like metrics or KPIs to okay, you remember this like process, what was this called, a renewal process that you created, account renewal process that you created, right? Hello, Anna?
For what? I'm sorry.
Do you remember the account renewal process you were talking about a while ago, right?
Yeah.
So that you created this process, right? So did you develop any metrics or KPIs to like track this process, the efficiency or the effectiveness of this project, the effectiveness of this process, or track whether it's like successful, or if like it is actually improving the customer experience or not, or how much boost in revenue it's generating?
No, not like a concrete number. No.
Okay. Like with the other process improvements that we've mentioned, like other initiatives that you took, like training the team members, etc., etc., did you ever develop any like metrics or key performance indices to like track their performance and see like if there is actually an improvement going on over there, to verify if there's improvement going on over there?
No, unfortunately not. No.
Okay. Did you Okay, we already talked about the industrial best practices bit. Uh, we already talked about process analysis and modeling as well. And right. So, have you ever identified like new sales obstacles aside from the ones you've talked about? Like we've talked about a couple of sales bottlenecks that you identified, but other than that, any other things?
No.
Okay, all right. So that's done. Have you identified any solutions, like trainings, additional trainings that your team needed from external vendors, or additional software that your department needed, or any additional professional services that you needed to like outsource, anything like that? Do you identify any solutions?
Um. No, not necessarily. No.
Okay. Did you lead any like other than the initiatives you talked about? Did you lead any other initiatives, any other impactful initiatives? Did you conduct any initiatives of your own other than the ones you talked about?
No.
All right. Did you lead teams through business process changes?
Did I
Oh
what?
yeah,
I'm sorry.
we already talked about this. like guiding teams through business process changes. You did that like while the Salesforce.com was being consolidated, right? Like
Correct.
you trained the team on the hello,
Correct.
right? Okay. Other than that, is there any other like business process changes that you helped guide the team through?
No,
All
nothing we
right.
haven't.
Okay. Okay. Uh, is there any way in which you like accelerated global growth of your organization?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay. Is there any particularly challenging or demanding corporate strategy that you helped like your executives came up with a new corporate strategy and you helped them execute that, or you helped them realize that?
Um, mm, no, no.
All right. Okay. Was there ever an instance where you got a very vague strategy from the executives and you were like asked to derive action oriented objectives from that, and you needed to derive measurable results from that vague business strategy or that vague corporate strategy?
No.
Okay, were you oh, do you have a dog? Is there a dog?
Yes,
You have a
I have
dog?
two.
Oh, there's a dog. They're so cute.
Yeah, they've been really good so far. They just now started. They've been asleep this whole time.
They miss you.
Yeah, they want attention now.
Don't worry, I'm not an enemy trying to steal her. All right. Um, derive action. Okay, we've done that. Were you involved in process like globalization, or were you involved in like global sales operations?
Mm, no, no, no.
All right. Okay. We already talked about the financial operational software. Okay, were you involved in Workday financials? Sorry, Workday financials. Is that right? This was
Sorry, say that again.
Workday financials. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Okay. All right. Uh, EMC order management system. Okay, all right. That's Dell related. API ID. Okay. Are you related? Do you have any experience in Salesforce coding? Are you familiar with terms like API ID, GUID, UCID?
No, I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. Okay. Knowledge of Salesforce best practices. We already talked about that. Analyzing integrated operations using Salesforce. Okay, like a lot of stuff that you did involved analyzing like all these different integrated operations, right? Like say for example the consolidation efforts, or a consolidation efforts, right? So have you ever analyzed integrated operations like between multiple different functions using Salesforce?
Analyzed what?
Integrated operations using Salesforce.
No. No, I'm not even sure
Okay.
what you
Um, like, can Salesforce be used to analyze company processes, get a bird's eye view of company processes, what's going on, company operations?
No, I didn't. I didn't do that.
Okay, all right. Okay. Have you ever leveraged any business process? What's this called? Business process improvement, business process management approach, or business process management approaches like Lean, Six Sigma, Kaizen, anything like that?
No.
All right. Okay. Uh, you're familiar with advanced Excel skills, pivot tables, VLOOKUPs. Okay, I believe you're familiar with advanced
Yes.
Excel skills, right?
Yep. Yes.
Like pivot tables, VLOOKUPs, and flexible report development. Okay.
Correct.
All right. and you are you have you ever reviewed customer relation management opportunity okay, yeah, you told me a lot about like sales opportunities and how you review sales opportunity information, correct?
Correct.
So there was this thing I needed you to like help me figure out what it means. There was a bullet in your like target jobs. It was like review CRM opportunity information. Is that the same thing?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Okay. I believe we are done with this section. Okay. We're going to like breeze through the other sections since you've given me a lot of material to like talk about over here. So, Verizon, like as a receptionist at like Verizon Telematics, like could you how shall I put it? Mm, could you give me an idea of like the customer service roles here, like the customer service things that you did here
As a receptionist.
as a
Mm.
receptionist? Yes.
Well, I didn't I didn't deal with a lot of customers at all actually. So although I was a receptionist, this was much closer to an office manager position. Um, Even though my title was
Right.
receptionist, I really don't know the rules on if I should. But I didn't deal with customers. I mean, the extent of dealing with customers was the handful of times that we would have a customer come in a year. I would set up the conference room. So, basic things like putting out, snacks, making sure the room was presentable, making sure waters were stocked, making sure that there was, pens and pads, like making sure that the conference room was set up, making sure that we had the correct, we would have the customer logo